I have story 1. Well. That sure is an outfit. Anyways, I'm back. Hi guys. Hopefully I'm back. Am I back? Have we returned to the world of the living? I know that's probably just a smidge annoying. I know that might just be a little bit annoying, but I promise for archiving purposes, you will thank me. Oh my god. It says I'm streaming. I thought you had everyone unlocked? No. Hell no. This shit is awful to get everyone unlocked. Can we get the rest to unlock more than the one? No. We literally do not have time. I have less than 24 hours and I've run out of free resources. Ah! You know, that might be a lie. Hold on. Let me go to the quests really fast. Let me see how many, because I need 14. I need 14 for one character. So let me check something really fast. Let me check the exchange. I can get 8 extra. That's not going to be enough. I can get 8 extra, but... Hold on. Let me see. Let me grab the 8 really fast. Let me grab these 8. Let me grab these 8. Let me check to see if I can't find these anywhere else. You guys might get lucky. We might actually be able to get like 2 characters instead of just 1, but I don't think that we're gonna be able to get much more than that. Just throwing it out there. We might be SOL on a character. God damn it. 1 second. Da, 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 da. Doop. 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 No, wait, shit. Doop. 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 There we go. Okay. Now let me check the exchange. Gimme! Gimme these. And then let me check the mama exchange, if I can find it. I swear, I can never read. I can't read to save my life. Gold exchange. Where's the mama exchange? Never find it, and it's here. There it is. It's literally right above. Just kill me. Now this is Mama's character exchange. Ooh. They gave me 2. How nice. I need cubes. Mama points exchange. It's right at the top. Why do I suck at this? Let me see. No, she only has summon tickets. I don't need summon tickets. I'm done. I'm not even done summoning. Tomorrow we're just gonna say fuck it and like do some things. How many did that get me? I think I need like 12 to 13 little boxes in order to get a character. Let me see. I can't believe I stopped and started this and I'm just fucking it. It's fine. I know Rain really wanted me to unlock Lavania because I have Theos, but I don't have Lavanias. I definitely agree with that statement just because Lavania is a main character. I need to find one with a cube next to it. Thank you. Let me... Oh, wait. God damn it. You know what? It's fine. We're not gonna worry about it. I'm gonna see what I can do. If we can get an extra person, we will. If not, we won't. I'm not gonna worry about it right now. What we're gonna do instead is I'm gonna go ahead and go to the library. We're gonna go to the EX character stories, and we're gonna try and at least get these 3 done tonight. Because these stories are long ones. These are like basically hidden lore stories for the characters. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys enjoy these. They're in English, so I can actually tab out and vibe. But yeah, so that's gonna be what I do. I just have to get in here and hit auto. Starting with Rion. The Flame Sparks, Part 1. Before the king abandoned his son.
Gray eyes scan the page. A king is not a conqueror. A king is the symbol of a nation. A king is the representative of his people. Row upon row of words about how a king should be. Yet the eyes in which these words are reflected showed no hint of admiration or discovery. The boy exhales in tedium. These things are already known to him. As a prince, he has been striving to develop all manner of wisdom in order that he might prepare for his future as a king. All these books say the same things. Annoyed, the prince closes the book and makes to return to his quarters. When he reaches the exit, he notices that the guards all seem a bit more on edge than normal. Ah yes, he thinks, the signing ceremony. Today, his father was signing a trade agreement with a neighboring country, supplying them with clockwork soldiers in exchange for large amounts of their natural resources. The neighboring kingdom desired these clockwork soldiers greatly, for they were of small population and thus lacked in troops. But clockwork men who would fight eternally without grumble or pause were a breakthrough solution to this particular problem. And as for the prince's kingdom, they needed natural resources to further their own research and development, much of which was dedicated to these very same clockwork soldiers. His footsteps echo across the marble floor. The castle is large, and it is quite a distance to his chambers. He thinks about the ceremony as he greets another set of guards. Though he is a prince, he has yet to witness such an international affair for himself. It would be good for me to know about such things. Maybe I should take a quick peek and see what it's like. It can only benefit me in the future, after all. Thus, having rationalized it, he decides to walk past the drawing room where the ceremony is being held, on the way back to his chambers. The group from the neighboring country has already arrived, and there is quite a large crowd gathered. There are numerous guards from the prince's kingdom, as well as ones from the opposing side. There are ministers and clerks and advisors and lawyers, and in the center of it all, the 2 kings. But then, at the edge of the crowd, the prince spies a young girl. She lifts the hem of her white skirt and curtsies at the room, seemingly at ease amidst all the murmuring adults. After gazing at her for a bit, realization finally dawns. She's the daughter of the other king, a princess. He recalled what he had just been reading in his book. She is not a king herself, but she seems to understand how a royal family member should act. As he stares, the prince reflects on his own position. Will I ever be that confident? That composed? As if sensing his attention, the princess suddenly turns around. He immediately hides his face behind the book in his hand, but it is a useless gesture. Before he knows it, the princess is approaching him. He tries to pull himself together and fails miserably, but the princess either doesn't notice or doesn't care. Instead, she stands right in front of him and says, "You seem pretty weak for a prince." "What?" he responds. The prince immediately rejects his earlier thoughts. She's not acting like royalty at all. She's just rude. You're the daughter of the king," he stammers. "You should be ashamed to treat a fellow royal in such a way." He thinks his argument came out rather well, all in all, but it is a wasted effort. The princess is wholly uninterested in what he has to say. "Right, whatever. Listen." "Whatever? What do you—" The girl suddenly places a finger on his mouth, cutting off his argument. Her lips, which are the color of early spring blossoms, break into a smile as she says, "Want to go play?" His gray eyes widen in bewilderment.
Part 1, story 2. It's so nice that I can actually just listen to this and know what This is why I usually play games in English. I do not have the attention span to, like, try to translate while doing other shit. Namely, playing a game, if there's no subtitles. The flame sparks. Oh.
A bead of sweat drips through the prince's white hair and down his ashen face. "All right, but if we get in trouble, don't blame me." The pair dodges their way through a web of security. Though the princess wanted to leave the castle entirely, the guards at the entrances were far too numerous, so they would have to content themselves with the castle courtyard. "You see," she says, "everything is fine. I'm a perfect angel when we are on official business." Her eyes glow with an inner flame as she surreptitiously watches the guards, causing him to think she must be his complete opposite. And yet he cannot deny the truth of her words. Tales of her flawless decorum had reached his ears as well. However, such tales often took the form of comments implying she was strangely unhuman, almost like a perfect doll. This is why the prince considered the meaning behind her attitude. Even if all of her famous good conduct was merely an act to impress foreign powers, why was she not acting like that now? "That guard is such a nuisance. We need to get by him to get through here," she growls. "Well, what do you think we should do? You live here after all." But the prince does not respond. He is staring down at his pocket watch, lost in thought. The princess grabs his wrist and pulls him close. "Hey, are you even listening to me?" "Yeah," he cries. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. The prince trails off. Now it is his counterpart's turn to be lost in thought. "Oh," she says as another smile slowly emerges on her face. "What a pretty watch. There's a banquet tonight, right?" Her tone is high-pitched and playful, but there is a touch of something else creeping in around the edges. She must mean the formal dinner after the signing ceremony. Before he can respond, she continues. "In that case, the castle will be heavily guarded all night, which means that soldier must have a shift change coming up." Suddenly, the prince understands what she is driving at. But just because he understands, it doesn't mean he likes it. He's going to be anxious for his relief to come, which means he's going to be staring at his watch. And you want to slip by while he's distracted? The princess winks, clearly pleased that he's finally caught up. Yeah, but it doesn't matter if he's looking at his watch, because he'll hear us when we run past him. Then we just have to run quietly, right? But the princess turns away as he speaks, her mind already made up. As he trails off, she watches the soldier and waits for her moment. There's no reasoning with this girl. Words and logic are meaningless. Suddenly, the princess tenses. The guard takes one hand off an automatic rifle and brings his wrist to his face. A yawn breaks out, and another. It happens in a moment, not even 10 seconds in all. But it is all the princess needs. She grabs her reluctant new friend by the scruff of his neck and makes a break for it. The two race down the corridor and out of the guard's sight. The prince, feeling yanked in all directions, only prays his feet won't betray him with a fall. Yes, cries the delighted princess as they come to the door that leads to the courtyard. The prince tries to slow his ragged breathing as the princess reaches for the handle, and suddenly stops. What the hell? Seriously? Windows line the courtyard, each with a guard behind it. Though they will be able to enter the outdoor area, they'll have to move carefully to stay out of sight. Damn it, we can't play like this. Shh, you're too loud. In the end, they sit down in the shade of a shrub and use its leaves to stay out of sight. The rays of the midday sun cast their shadows on the grass, but it seems unlikely such a thing will be noticed. The princess mutters in discontent as she looks up at an opening in the courtyard roof. Well, this has been an extraordinary waste of effort.
Ow, my butt. I like how ReIN's secret story is, yeah, this really spoiled princess caused my dad to explode. Like, I was looking at this like, I can't believe ReIN actually did nothing wrong, and it was all the this princess is gonna get him in so much trouble. Send help. Alrighty, Henry, you take care. Good night, sweet dreams. Don't worry, I'm literally just trying to, like, get a couple of these stories out of the way. That exploded. Just watch the VODs, missed.
The princess reaches down and plucks a handful of grass from the perfectly manicured green lawn.
I was like, explaining what happened. Literally, ReIN's whole story is he's an exiled prince. He ran the fuck away, and he's trying to stop the war that his dad's doing. Hashtag for peace. Like, it's a long story, and I don't even know if I can explain it. It's best to just, like, go back and, like, watch it once I have the playlist up.
She stays silent, and the prince is too winded from their run to the courtyard to strike up a conversation. Perhaps out of pity for his weakened physical state, Princess seems willing to set aside her desire for play. Hey, so... begins the prince. What did you want to do, anyway? Huh? Oh, that. She places her hand on her forehead in a clear display of thinking. Or perhaps she is only pretending to think, and responds with a sigh. I don't know. I didn't plan that far ahead. So this was all a spur-of-the-moment thing? Yeah, I mean, I figured we'd come up with something. The prince laughs dryly. I'm a sad, scrawny introvert who treasures careful thought, and she is a light-hearted dynamo who shoots from the hip. We couldn't be more different. Though the prince was worried their conversation would be stilted, it quickly proves to be anything but. You know, there's stuff you can't learn from books. True, there are some things you cannot know without experiencing them yourself. Oh, so you do know that. How delightful. It has been especially true today. And what does that mean, hmm? The prince smiles with her. You are a rather strange princess. And you are a very odd prince. Above them, a bird with black tail feathers chirps merrily away. The princess peers at the prince. So talk to me. You've studied lots of subjects, right? I suppose. Well, what kind of king do you want to be? What kind of country do you want to build? She stares at him, waiting for a response. Well, you have to promise not to laugh, but... He holds the book in front of his face again, as if to ward off her inevitable scorn. I want to make this a country without war. There are many people in this world, and it is filled with so many wonderful things. But I believe all of us working together could create even more wonderful things. If everyone was working toward the same goals, no one would be harmed at the expense of another. Anyway, that's my wish. So what about you? Me? Before she can respond, a shrill ring interrupts them.
Oh dear.
It's coming from the prince's pocket. Sorry, he says with a bow. It's my father. The princess shrugs. Don't worry about it. He apologizes again before leaving their shady spot and bringing the communicator up to his ear. The voice on the other end is most familiar. Where are you? What are you doing? Father, I was just... The prince's expression stiffens as his voice turns hoarse. He had tricked his own guards to reach an off-limits courtyard. He was cavorting about with the princess of a neighboring country. The truth would only lead to trouble. But his father was not a man who could be led astray with lies. There's no choice. You have to tell him. You have to take responsibility for your actions. I am in the courtyard, Father. Are you alone? His father's tone is unemotional, a simple request for information. And that terrifies the prince. No, the princess is here. As he squeezes out his answer, he doesn't notice his new friend's worried gaze from across the yard. I see. Father and son fall quiet. But the weight of that silence could not have been more different for the two. He is furious with me. Punishment will be swift. But the next thing he hears defies all expectations. Very well. The king pauses a moment. I'll be there soon. The two of you stay put. The call ends as quickly as it began. When he returns, the princess peers at him worriedly. You okay there? Yes, he replies nervously. Everything is fine. So, what were we talking about again? His words couldn't have sounded more hollow to his ear. But the princess makes no more mention of it. Oh, that? I don't know. I've totally forgotten.
Rian was just trying to be a good boy. Rian just wanted to be good. I cry every day. Da da da. Oops. The Flame Sparks, Part 4.
Hey, so why did you invite me to play? This question has been on the prince's mind. But his true concern is about the call from his father. Something about the instruction to stay put gnawed at him. Perhaps because he expected his father would be angry with him. Regardless, he can't help but feel something ominous about it. Across from him, the princess squirms. Well, see, unlike her rapid-fire banter from earlier, she seems to be choosing her words carefully. I think you probably feel the same way, but my circumstances are sort of unique. She stares off into space as she talks, looking at nothing. My parents are always too busy for me. All the adults are. The only other kid I ever see is the one in the mirror. Maybe it would be different if I wasn't an only child, but it's just that I've always felt like I had to act a certain way around other people, you know? Once she says that, she turns back to look at the prince, and he looks at her in return. That's why I thought maybe I could find someone who her sentence would never be finished. It has been blotted out. He feels the shadow of his father, smells the aroma of gunpowder, and stares at a white dress, quickly turning red. It is too late to stop it. Military boots thunder around him. Her spring blossom lips are as lush as ever, and he understands that his father's men have shot the princess. He wishes he didn't. Well done, my son. A low voice rumbles in his ears. The soldiers lower their guns at the king's approach. His face twists in a bitter scowl as he speaks. What a disgusting nation. To think they would use a young girl in such a way. To think they would scheme to kidnap my own son. The prince sits absolutely still. Not a breath stirs. We shall have no agreements with such a country. The prince finds it hard to believe she could have had such plans. But he doesn't have definite proof, and his father's shadow now looms over his heart, chiding him. What could you possibly know about someone you've just met, it seems to say. I could not leave this matter unattended, continues the king. Dangerous buds must be quickly plucked. He turns to his men as if seeking agreement. The soldiers all nod heartily. At the sight, the prince feels both relief and a disturbing fear that seems to crawl across his body. Come, Rion, we must be off. Turning to leave, the king calls out to him. Yes, father. He responds firmly, as if to push aside his jumbled thoughts. It was his father, the king of this country, who had spoken, which means it must be true. You heard the stories. She was strangely unhuman, remember? As he follows his father, clutching his book to his chest, he does all he can to convince himself. The blood splashed across the cover drips onto his sleeves. The next morning, clad in ceremonial dress, the prince stands before his people. His clothes speak his station to all the world. By wearing them, he plays a role as his country's symbol. His legs quake as he stands on the platform. His father has given him a single order. Tell the people of the fear you experienced. she had never scared him. Yet he has no choice but to say it. His own assassination has just been foiled, which is the perfect justification for war. His mouth, dry as a desert, struggles to form words. He does not know what he is going to say. Perhaps she was an assassin. Perhaps she was innocent. He does not know. But there is one thing he does know. His words will spark a war. With a shaking voice, he begins to tell his tale. A chill alights on his fingertips before spreading across his body. But he balls his hand into a fist and fights to ignore it.
Well, wartime. And that's how the war started. So, yeah, it was technically his fault, but it really wasn't because his dad's kind of awful. You know. Like, should you have lied? No, but that's also your dad, and it's like... it's just complicated all around. Now, I am gonna do a thing, and we're gonna look at Demos's first. We are gonna go back and do Gale's tonight, but I do want to do Demos's next because this is literally just a straight continuation. This is during the war because the Clockwork Soldiers were created for wartime, so you know, I figured let's go ahead and let's recall his next. Doop. Transient Light, Part 1. Before he met the boy. Technically.
A sudden flash of light streaks out toward the city clock tower. A moment later, a cannonball makes contact with a thundering crash, and a portion of the tower collapses, raining debris everywhere. Estimating landing points and dispersion range, 5.34 seconds until falling debris impacts ground. At the base of the tower, a man performs rapid calculations, then takes 10 quick paces back. When he stops, the debris strikes the very spot where he had stood just moments before, creating a billowing bloom of dust. But the man pays it no mind. Instead, he focuses on the enemy base that fired the cannon. This battle unfolds in a technologically advanced city of an enemy country. A city where smoke now rises from every corner. The king the man serves has a reputation as a tyrant, and has conquered many other nations through force of arms. This war was sparked when he severed diplomatic ties. And like many sparks, it has turned into a raging inferno. Whenever the man spies an enemy unit, he silently pulls his gun from the holster. One bullet, one kill. The enemy never knows what hits them. His is a supernatural, inhuman precision. He is a mechanical soldier, a clockwork man without life, developed expressly for the purpose of fighting in war. The man dashes across the battlefield, staying low. He has orders to scout out the enemy forces. It has long been assumed that both armies are of equal strength. But the enemy has developed a new weapon, one that can launch massive artillery shells over great distances. Their front line has been losing ground, and it is now only a matter of hours before the main base comes into range of the enemy's guns. Having finished his scouting mission and dispatched what enemy soldiers he could find, the man returns to the base. Base is a generous term. In truth, it is little more than a large tent set up to temporarily house their commanders. Inside the tent, a map of the city is spread across a large table. Pawns have been placed on it to show the state of various units. The lead commander is a boy, one too young to even serve in battle. Your decision, Highness? The Highness spoken of is the boy, the kingdom's eldest prince. It is he who sent the Clockwork Man on his scouting mission. And though the prince volunteered for this command, he now finds himself with the unenviable task of making decisions that hold sway over the fate of the entire war. Eventually, one of his generals suggests using some of their own men as a distraction in order to get the drop on the enemy. The prince frowns at this proposal before rejecting it. He is still clearly a boy in thought as well as appearance. He is unable to sacrifice any of his own men, even when it might lead to the survival of many times that number. It is naivety, and it is on clear display for all to see. The general who made the suggestion scoffs at this decision. "Your hesitation will kill us all," he cries. He slams both hands on the table to better illustrate his point. Then he announces his intention to take his men and fight as he sees fit, before storming out of the tent in disgust. Such division amongst the ranks only worsens the situation. Yet the prince continues to issue commands. It is unclear what so spurs him to action. The Clockwork Man stands to one side of the tent and watches the prince from the corner of his eye. Though he says nothing, he knows the lack of leadership will eventually lead the enemy right to their door. And all too soon, this comes to pass. "The base is lost, my prince," says the Clockwork Man. "You must flee and save your own life." "No," replies the prince. "I'll not leave while my men are still out there fighting and dying." Though the man calmly explains that the prince has no choice but retreat, his young charge does not seem to understand. There is a flash. A cannonball explodes into the tent, blowing it apart. All that remains is a massive crater and a few scraps of fabric. The man hears harsh breathing and turns his head. The young prince is running behind him. Just before the cannonball struck, he grabbed the prince and forcibly removed him from the tent. Now, the two of them run through an underground tunnel that leads outside the main part of the city. Behind them, the sounds of war gradually diminish.
Good job, Dad. He sparked a war and the son's so guilty that he's out there commanding an army to try and help. But he'd just make it worse, because he's a pacifist. A+ parenting. Transient Light, Part 2.
War still raged in every corner of the city. This is why the Clockwork Man is leading the prince away. As he runs, he examines every corner for danger, looks in every shadow for possible ambush. The prince follows, gasping for breath. Eventually, the prince loses his footing and falls to the ground with a cry. The man stops. Part of his orders are to protect the prince. Though they gave him information on a need-to-know basis, he was told the prince suffers from a congenital disease. If he forced him to run further, it might cause serious harm. The man quickly scans the area. The tunnel is massive, stretching on without end in both directions. The tracks that run under his feet speak to its use as a train tunnel during better times. After a brief search, he locates a door in the wall. It is half buried in debris, but when the man peers inside, he finds a small storage room behind it. Slumbering within are battered lanterns, picks, and shovels. It is a storage place for tools used to maintain the tunnel. Thinking it the perfect spot to lie low, the man brings his young charge inside. "This is all because I took command," says the prince sadly. With his ragged breaths now steadied, he is able to turn a critical eye upon his earlier actions. As his kingdom commits to a cycle of endless war, soldiers and citizens alike are growing increasingly weary. The prince chose to take on the burden of command so he might be able to save them all. But in the end, things did not transpire as he wanted. He never considered having to place the lives of his own soldiers on the scales. But he now sees that what he thought of as kindness had instead brought death and pain to multitudes. The man stares at the boy and considers his words. "You did well," he says finally. As the words leave his mouth, they feel strange, off. He cannot grasp the intention behind what he said. It is simply the natural phrase he arrived at when he saw the prince's grieved expression. The boy stares at the man blankly. They wait that way for a bit, alone in the darkness. But then, a small glimmer of brightness returns to his face. With an awkward, unpracticed smile, the boy thanks the man for saving his life during the recent battle. "If I am ever in danger again," he says, "maybe you can help me out." His words come with a hint of jest, but also a touch of joy. The Clockwork Man continues his conversation with the prince. But as they do so, the boy's coughs come more frequently. He eventually produces a medicine bottle from his pocket. The man surmises it is used to suppress the cough. But the bottle is empty. A pained look moves across the prince's face, one that he tries and fails to hide. "The royal family cannot show weakness around others," he says. "This is a lesson my father taught me again and again." He had not coughed once at the base because the medicine was able to disguise his symptoms. But now, that is why what you see here must remain a secret. His speech complete, the boy raises a pinky finger and extends it to the Clockwork Man. The man's database tells him this is a human ritual of promise. Though he intertwines his finger with the prince's, the action makes him somehow uneasy. The man suddenly hears the distant sound of footsteps. He concentrates his oral apparatus on the noise. Enemy soldiers, most likely. He estimates a dozen or so. He fixes his eyes on the gap in the door, half buried in rubble. A thin, wavering line of light passes through it. He will never outrun the men with the sickly prince in tow. So both man and prince still their breaths, stay put, and wait. The man places his hand over the boy's mouth so he will not give them away. The light through the door grows brighter, then brighter still.
Oh.
The prince's body betrays them both.
It's like, well, time to die. It's like that illness was gonna kill him one way or another. Jesus. I just, you know, I want a timeline where Rihanna and Demos are just able to adventure forever and just, that's just their life. They just go on adventures and shit. Can I have that, Yoko Taro? No. Transient Light, Part 3.
They sit in the darkened room. The man presses a hand against the prince's mouth to still his breathing. Men, most likely enemy soldiers, are approaching their position. But as they wait for them to pass, the prince's cough rips through the silence. "Here," yells a soldier. "They're here." The room surrounded. The man knows he has no choice but to destroy every last soldier in order to keep the prince safe. He kicks open the door and pulls his weapon from his holster. But he does not fire. "Highness, you live," says the general from before. Sensing the turning tide of battle, he had taken his men and abandoned the base before seeking shelter in the tunnel. The prince is clearly relieved to see his rescuers arrive. But as he approaches the soldiers, the general raises a hand and his men point their swords at him. The prince stops moving and confusion spreads across his face. This sight causes the general to snicker. He then explains a shocking truth. A plot has been unfolding behind the scenes. The prince is to be murdered, and his death blamed on the war. The plan was set in motion by his younger brother, who sought to eliminate his competition for the throne. During the previous battle, they had set their units in inferior positions in order to tilt the battle in favor of the enemy. After their position was overrun, they would use the ensuing chaos as cover to eliminate the prince. Once this was accomplished, the kingdom would send reinforcements to win back all the ground they had lost. "This can't be happening," murmurs the prince. The general grins wide. Suddenly, the clockwork man turns to the general, who immediately barks an order. "You there, machine, stand down at once." The man is a mechanical soldier manufactured by the kingdom. He is programmed to follow any order from a superior officer. So at the general's command, he freezes. He watches dispassionately as the general approaches the boy with his sword unsheathed. The prince does not yield ground, but instead stares blankly in the shock of his own country betraying him. But rather than strike the killing blow, the general takes the chance to berate his prey. "You're a useless worm, an unthinking coward who put all of us in danger in a sad attempt to earn your daddy's approval. I've lost men because of you. Good men. Friends." Tears begin to spill down the prince's cheeks. But he does not deny the truth of these words. His piece said, the general raises his sword above his head and prepares to strike. The clockwork man cannot accept what he is seeing. "I must protect the prince. I must stop the general. I must reach for my gun." But because of the general's orders, he can do nothing. Instead, in the face of the prince's last moments, he accesses records of the boy in his memory banks. He sees how the prince desperately issued commands in an attempt to keep his soldiers safe. He sees how the prince showed weakness and trusted him. Suddenly, his records find a phrase the prince said moments before. "If I am ever in danger again." The man draws iron, his hand as fast as blue blazes, and blows the general's sword arm from his body. He fires again, and again, and again.
I love Debo's.
The general's men, caught off guard, fall one after the other. The prince had set the line in passing jest. "If I am ever in danger again, maybe you can help me out." But the Clockwork Man chooses to take these words as royal orders that demanded absolute obedience. Orders that override even those of a senior military officer.
I love Demos.
The wounded general snarls and draws his own weapon. The Clockwork Man shoots it out of his hand. In the blink of an eye, the tables have turned. The ground is painted red. The general begins to plead for his life, but it means nothing to the man who presses his barrel against the general's temple. "Stop," cries the prince. Despite the general's actions, the prince still seeks to save his life. Though he did not speak his feelings aloud, the man understands the reason behind the request, and so lowers his weapon. A moment later, more footsteps ring out. This time, it is not traitors, but the enemy army. The man has a choice. Save the general, or save the boy. He lifts the prince up and begins to run. "I couldn't save him," says the prince as the general's cries grow weaker. "I tried, but I couldn't."
It's fine. Fucking love Demos. Alright, time for the end to our tale. Transient Light, Part 4.
In the middle of a wasteland where the wind blows dry stands a kingdom surrounded by walls. The contours of an enormous castle waver as the sun sets behind it. The Clockwork Man and the prince approach the kingdom with a sigh. They are home. They stand before a thick metal door at the castle gate that leads to the town beyond. A guard sees the two and approaches. "Your Highness, I see you are safe." Everyone assumed the prince had met his end in battle, and the guards are unable to hide their shock. The guards respectfully place the prince on a carriage headed for the castle. But as he watches the prince go, the Clockwork Man is presented with a false warrant for his alleged crimes. The first charge, abandoning his post. A second charge, betraying his unit. The third charge, murder of a superior officer. The man did what he did to save the life of the prince. Though the accusations are willful mistruths at best, he has no way to combat them. And even if they were completely true, he still believes what he did was right. The Clockwork Man is taken to a laboratory. A researcher orders him into a mechanical chair and places alloy fixtures on his limbs and torso. His treatment will be a complete memory wipe. The man's consciousness drifts in darkness. It is a strange sensation, almost like floating. This is his memory space. In the darkness, images begin to form. He sees men blasted to bits by his own steel. Memories of war. The face of every man he's ever killed is recorded here. Next, he sees a conversation he had with the general. He is being ordered to protect the prince at all cost. Images appear. Images flicker. Images disappear. But finally, he comes to memories of the prince himself. He sees him, desperately issuing orders at the base. He sees his pained expression as he spoke of his weakness. He sees him shed tears at hearing the truth behind the war. That is why what you see here must remain a secret. He sees the secret promise and ritual they shared. Compared to his other memories, these almost seem to glow. Suddenly, a sound. A single, insistent buzz. His memories of the prince begin to fade. He cannot stop it. They vanish one after the other. He should not be bothered by this. After all, he is a mechanical soldier designed for war. The memory reset program whirs inside him. Though he should be accepting the procedure without pause, the man resists the deletion of any memories of the prince. He reaches out to them with his mind, but he will never find them. The deletion accelerates. The buzzing grows louder. A pained groan slips from his lips. What was the meaning behind his own feelings? Why did he resist the procedure? The man's eyes spring open. He does not know why he is in the laboratory. He knows only that he is a mechanical soldier created for war. One researcher looks at the results and shakes his head. Looks like there was an error in the reset process. You're going to be discarded. After being informed of his fate, the man is taken away and placed in an underground storehouse. His only companion is the hiss of steam escaping from pipes. Mixed in among similarly discarded scraps of junk, the man attempts to sleep. But an alien sensation in his chest prevents it. Even after he searches all parts of his memory, he cannot locate the cause. He realizes that thinking about it will accomplish nothing. All he can do is wait as he slowly rots away. There is someone I must see. What comes to mind at the very end is nonsense. But the man ignores it, and instead slowly closes his eyes.
And then that's the start of Devos' story. It's fine. Why can't they just go on little adventures together forever? Alright, well, that was Demos' story, and then it ends with Gale, who is a victim of the war that has gone on for generations. And she's, you know, out on a mission to kill anything and everything that has to do with the enemy country. A Promise Sworn, Part 1. When she was yet young. When we were young. My eyes. Ow. Send help.
A blazing inferno reflects in a pair of eyes.
Yeah, my retinas are sure burning right now.
The girl's empty expression betrays nothing. The sight of flames roaring in the darkness is etched upon her mind. Her heart speaks to her in a dry tone. You will never forget this night. Not for the rest of your life. Mom, come help with this. The girl's bright voice rings through the kitchen. Lined across the table are a colorful array of vegetables in hues of green, yellow, and red, as well as a large piece of meat. Cradling the girl's younger sister, her mother turns to the sound of her older child's pleas. Well, someone's enthusiastic about their cooking. The mother looks on as the girl continues bustling about the kitchen. She is learning to cook from her mother. You need to add a little more seasoning, honey. Here, try it now. The moment the girl brings the food to her mouth, her furrowed brow loosens and a smile breaks out. Oh, yummy. The two chefs look at each other proudly, content in the knowledge the recipe is perfect. The girl sets the steaming dishes down. The mother plops the little sister in her chair as the three of them gather around the table. The wood practically groans under the weight of the food, which is far too much for even 3 hungry mouths. As the mother starts cutting meat into small pieces for her youngest daughter, she looks at the elder with a wry smile. It's good you got more practice in, but we clearly went overboard on our portion control. Everyone chuckles as they dive into their meal. Dad's coming home soon, right? Asks the girl as she happily bounces up and down in her chair. The letter had arrived a few days ago. It was a notice their father would soon be returning from his military service. The moment the girl read it, she ran into her mother's room and announced her grand plan. I'm going to make Dad's favorite dinner when he gets back. She has been awaiting his return for so long. The last time she saw him was the morning he left for the front. His expression betrayed mixed feelings, and the young girl had no way of knowing what sort of emotions they were. But as he held her tight, he leaned into her ear and whispered, I will come back to you, I promise. That promise was everything to her, and now it is coming true. When she thinks of it, she can hardly contain herself. Feelings she managed to keep suppressed all this time are now bubbling up like water from an overfilled pot. But she manages to hold them back and keep her calm. I'm the older sister now, she thinks. I have to hold it together. Her younger sister was born after her father left, and word of her birth had not been able to reach him on the battlefield. What will Dad think when he sees her? Will he love her like me? Will he love her more than me? The girl shakes her head to clear the ugly thought away. As she rubs her swollen belly, she marvels at how well the cooking lessons have gone. Aside from her ability to judge proper quantities, of course. She leans back in her chair and indulges in a brief flight of fancy. All of her father's favorite foods are lined across the table. As he takes the first bite, a satisfied smile crosses his face. She sits at his side, no longer the young child he once knew, but not yet a woman grown. He'll be amazed to see how much I've changed. It's going to make him so happy. Her reverie is interrupted by the voice of her mother. When you're done wool gathering, you can help clean up. The girl starts, nearly tipping her chair over in the process. You're the older sister now. You can't afford to be lazy. The girl pouts a little at the scolding, but her mother pays this small rebellion no mind. Instead, she entrusts her to take care of the dishes and heads off to attend to her sister. It must be so hard for Mom to take care of both of us alone. I need to work as hard as I can to support her. She's always put on a smile for us no matter what. And that's why I've been able to keep going, even when I was sad, or lonely, or depressed. I'm too old to be having jealous fits or slinging snide remarks. So what if she doesn't pay much attention to me anymore? She nods to herself as she reaches this conclusion and proceeds to wash and put away the kitchenware. When night comes, the exhausted girl begins falling asleep the moment her head strikes the pillow. As she drifts off, she feels her mother's hand on her head. Thank you, honey. You are always appreciated. With that, her mother stands and leaves the room. In her dreams, her entire family sits happily around the table.
You know, I was rushing grabbing these, so I don't think I've actually listened to Gail's story. This is gonna be a sad one, isn't it? It's fine. A Promise Sworn, Part 2.
The girl stares out the window. Whenever she hears a noise coming from the door, she bolts to her feet. Her mother makes a comment about her being worse than a puppy, which causes her cheeks to go pouty once more. With each ring of the doorbell, the girl rushes to the door, only to return each time filled with disappointment. Finally, the moment she was waiting for arrives. The front door opens to reveal her father in his military uniform. How long had they waited for this? How long had they all waited for this? Unable to help herself, the girl leaps up and runs to her father. But then, something shocking happens. Her father shoves her aside. She crashes to the ground, unable to process what just happened. A silence ill-befitting a family reunion falls over them. Sensing the heavy atmosphere, the youngest begins to cry. The father covers his ears at the sound of her wails and rushes off to his room. "Don't worry, girls," says her mother as she helps her daughter up. "Your father is just tired." She smiles as she says this, but the expression does not carry over to her eyes. The girl remains stunned. She can't fathom what just happened.
Oh.
Her sister's sobs echo around the entryway. She does not see her father again until dinner. She is almost beside herself with worry. What if her actions had caused her father's mood? As she bites her lower lip, her mother comes up behind her. "It's okay, honey. You didn't do anything wrong." Rather than comfort her, the words make tears spring to her eyes. But she manages to hold them back and force a smile on her face. "It will be better once he eats. He's going to love it. This is what you've been working so hard for, remember?" Thus determined, she begins helping her mother with the meal. The fragrance of grilling meat covered in her mother's secret seasoning soon wafts through the kitchen. A knife falls up and down on the cutting board. As the ingredients take on new forms, the girl's heart leaps wildly between anticipation and anxiousness. They put up the decorations they'd prepared around the room and pile the plates high with steaming warm food in order to celebrate the day. And then they await the guest of honor. Sometime later, he enters the room and takes his seat. The whole family is finally together again. But her father doesn't touch his food. Instead, he just sits there. The daughter looks at him out of the corner of her eye, noticing for the first time how gaunt he has become, how pale and sickly he appears. Her dream has become reality, but there is no joy in it. She begins to wish it weren't real after all, that she might wake up from it. As that thought crosses her mind, a crash rings out. She is yanked back to reality by the sound of shattering porcelain. The carefully prepared dinner is now scattered across the floor. "Bugs," screams her father, his voice raw with terror. Oh God, they're everywhere.
Oh.
Her panicked father leaps up and dances away from the table. He then begins stomping the food into the floor with the heels of his heavy military boots. He is trying to squish the insects, the ones only he can see. Her little sister begins to wail again. Even her normally composed mother stares on, dumbfounded. She can't even pretend to understand what is happening. A few seconds later, her father comes to his senses. I'm sorry. I didn't mean. He lets his words trail off as he sways unsteadily on his feet. Then he bends down and begins to slowly scrape the food off the floor, moving as if in a trance. "Dad, no. Let me do it." The girl drops to her knees and begins a frantic cleaning. Her mother rushes to grab some rags, and for a brief, insane moment, it almost feels like everything will be okay. But then... Ow! Dang it. In her rush, the girl had cut her finger on a broken shard of plate, and now drops of blood spill down to the floor. The moment her father sees it, he turns to the side and vomits. When her mother returns, she finds a room filled with horrid smells, shrieking cries, and chaos. Her father stumbles from the house and into the night without even bothering to clean himself. He does not return until the next day.
Okay, well, this definitely did not go where I thought it was going to go, which is surprisingly, it's going better than I thought it was going to go. I thought because he didn't know about the other daughter that he was going to, like, fly into a rage because I can't trust Yoko Taro with my feelings. Surprisingly going better than I thought. I killed it. Send help. Not to say that it's going much better than I thought. You know what I mean? Well, time for part 3. I love having more flashbacks. This is fine. A Promise Sworn, part 3.
Her father is unable to find work. Days pass, then weeks. Nothing changes. With their savings all but depleted, the mother is forced to find work outside the home. The job of watching over the younger sister falls to the elder. But youth has a way of forgetting trouble, and the little sister is constantly happy, vibrant, and full of life. Each time she begs her sister to play, it brings a bit of warmth to her tense heart. But there is also much pain as well. One day, she and her sister are playing with blocks. They build a small town with a strong gate and a mighty castle, and populate it with the little sister's toy soldiers. The girl takes out a small instrument and begins playing a jaunty march as her sister moves the soldiers to and fro. This game, which they call Parade, has been the little sister's favorite of late. Suddenly, her father wanders by the room, his face clouded. The moment he sees the soldiers, he begins to scream. No, no, stop that right now. The girls freeze. He tears the soldiers out of the little sister's hands, rips their heads from their bodies, and kicks over the blocks.
Jesus Christ.
The girl stares wordlessly. Her sister begins to cry. Her father throws the ruined toys in the trash and backs out of the room with a terrified look on his face. He is a different person now. She no longer knows him. And yet, he is still her father, whom she loves. He's just sick, she tells herself day after day. He'll get better. Things will go back to how they were. Their father does seem to feel guilty about his condition. One day, he offers to help with the housework. Mother and daughter both agree instantly, hoping that perhaps this smallest of steps will be the push he needs to get well. The next day, he begins preparing a bath for the little sister. The girl is worried by her father's slow, clumsy movements and finds herself checking in on him every few minutes. But watching him draw the bath just feels so very normal. And for a brief moment, she finds happiness in the scene. Expecting things to be ready soon, the girl peeks in and finds her father about to place her sister into the bath. Her little sister is staring at the bath, eyes wide. Sensing something amiss, the girl looks at the water and sees that it is boiling. She runs to her sister and quickly scoops her up. "Dad, no. What are you doing?" Her father stares at her, confused. "I was just putting her in the bath." Her father's answer contains no acknowledgement of the situation's horror. She fumbles out a lame excuse about her not being ready for a bath and flees the room with her sister in her arms. She is glad her father wants to be involved with the family. She truly is. But his actions bring no joy. Mother and daughter find themselves more exhausted with each passing day. And one night, it all comes crashing down. Her patience gone, the girl's mother begins to scream at her husband. Her furious cries penetrate the bedroom walls. The girl has never heard her scream like this before. Within moments, her father begins to bellow back, and the sounds of their rage fill the air. Suddenly, the girl feels a strange sensation, almost like her heart is splitting in two. What's going to happen to us? She does not know. All she can do is close her eyes and pray.
Man, Yoko Taro, I just... you know. Well, let's see how this ends. Oh no. Oh no. This is not gonna end well. I can't believe the sister's gonna have to be the mom that stepped up. Oof, I did not like that artwork. A Promise Sworn, Part 4.
A strange crackling sound stirs her from sleep. Then she begins to cough. Smoke. That's smoke? Oh my God. The house is on fire. She wants to believe this is a nightmare. She wants to believe it with all that she is. But the heat will not let her. Dad. Mom. My sister. A moment later, she dashes out of her bedroom. Dad. Her father is standing in the living room. Flames lick up around him. Her mother's body lies still at his feet. Her father slowly turns to look at her. His eyes are two empty pools. His mind is gone. The girl stares at him, unable to act. The flames grow stronger. A vibration shakes the room. Something falls. Glass shatters. Finally, the girl snaps back to reality. She is standing in the middle of an inferno. Suddenly, her vision goes black. She smells a familiar, comforting aroma and realizes she is wrapped in her father's coat. He lifts her in his arms and sprints out of the house. When he sets her on the ground and unrolls the coat, her eyes are burned by the intensity of the flames. Her consciousness a whirl, she manages to croak out, My sister. She does not know if he hears her or not, but he turns around and runs back into the house. His silhouette is swallowed by fire. Time passes. A minute is an age. The girl can only stare and hope. Finally, a figure emerges from the inferno. Her sister is in his arms, wrapped in a blanket. He reaches the girl and collapses to the ground. The smoking blanket unfurls to reveal her sobbing sister. The girl runs her hands over her sister to check for injuries, and is shocked to find she has none. But her father is a different story. His skin is peeled and blackened. His remaining hair crumbles to ash when she touches it. His clouded, bloody eyes stare unseeingly at nothing. After a moment, his mouth begins to move. He repeats the same words over and over. It is an apology. But it is not meant for her, nor for her sister or their mother. Instead, he is apologizing for actions during the war, his mind lost amidst fields of battles long since fought. His voice grows softer and weaker. In an increasingly faint voice, he calls his daughter's name. However, she is unable to make out whatever words follow. By the time she attempts a reply, he is gone. Some time later, she learns portions of what happened to him during the war. The orders he was given, young children clutching weapons, blood, gore, screams of pain, eyes staring up from the dirt. The eyes of little girls, girls much like his own daughter. Her father left the battlefield, but his spirit never did. Why? 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 No matter how many times she asks, no one ever answers her. Perhaps there is no answer. Or at least, no answer that can roll the stone off her heart. The two girls stare at the smoking remains of their home. Sis? Where's Mom? Where's Dad? Her little sister looks up at her quizzically. They are now alone in the world. The girl smiles gently at her sister. Like her own question, hers has no answer. Yet she feels a resolve begin to build. I will make her happy, whatever it takes. She will never have to feel the way I do right now. She squeezes her sister's hand as she makes this silent vow.
She's like, I'm your mom
A
now.
vow that is now her entire reason for living.
This is fine. Wow. I was not expecting Gil's story to be so sad. Well, I was, but like, I wasn't expecting it to be like this fucking sad. You know what I mean? I get that they're called dark memory quests and that like Nier ReIncarnation's already dark, but like, alright, Yoko Taro, I fucking see you. Jeez. Oh, okay. Okay, so that was 3 stories, and 3 stories took about an hour. So let's see, I have 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour. Ooh, I have to be. Oof. Okay, well. I'm wondering if I shouldn't continue just because, like, I worry that we're gonna run out of time. And I really want to look at 10H's story at some point. Let me see. I don't have Akiha. Yeah, no, I don't have Akiha. Let's see. I have the husband. I think we can do... I don't mind doing Lars and Griff right now. And then like we'll just play catch up. Did I do hers? No, I didn't. I did not do no. Yeah, I'll do 2 more just because I feel like I'd rather have a short stream where we're just fucking around near the end than like fuck it up and just, you know. Who knows? So I'm gonna do Lars and Griff. We're gonna do their stories, and then from there we're gonna go ahead and I'll call it after that. It's just I really don't want to run out of time to do these dark memory quests if 3 take an hour. That's just that might be a little bit so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do their 2 stories, and then I'll go ahead and call it. Just to make sure that we don't run out of time tomorrow. It's fine. After he returned from the battle.
Cheers ring out from the dusty barrack. In a shift from the tense atmosphere on the eve of their operation, the soldiers now laugh easily with each other as they celebrate the great victory they have won. Cheers.
Golden ale flows freely and without formality of rank. The men drain glass after glass, scarcely noticing how much they are spilling in the process. Their unit had secured a miraculous victory, and this party is their reward. But they are drunk on more than ale this night. They took on an impossible mission and came back alive, and this fact alone makes their heads swim and their speech giddy. Men brag of their accomplishments in battle. They brag about the beauty of their wives. Every lip is loosened and free. Apparently, some of the soldiers even earned promotions for their valor on the mission. But inside this bright atmosphere, a single young soldier sits apart from the others, with a glum look on his face. He had infiltrated the enemy base alone, against the orders of his direct commander, and slain the enemy captain. Though their victory was due in large part to this deed, his actions were still troubling. No matter how well it had turned out, he had ignored a direct order from a superior. A court-martial would be unsurprising. That he did so because of a personal grudge is perhaps the most troubling fact of all. By all rights, he should have died on that battlefield. But his life was saved by his fellow soldiers, and especially by the quick thinking and bravery of the very captain whose orders he was so quick to disregard. Regardless, the boy sits alone, not bothering to thank the men around him or share a meal or drink. His mind is still back with the enemy commander, the same man who killed his parents so long ago. After years of chasing him, the boy had finally cornered his target and plunged his weapon into his heart, along with all of his hate. But the fall of the curtain on his revenge was hollow. He felt no exhilaration, no accomplishment. Instead, he was left with the empty bones of a past he could never reclaim. With that gloomy sadness filling the boy's head, the dying enemy captain spoke to him. He told the boy something that turned everything he'd ever believed on its head. And now, he sits among his celebrating fellows and replays the words over and over again in his mind. The secret of my birth, my past, my true father. It is so far-fetched as to stretch the bounds of credulity, and yet he is unable to set it aside. The boy stares blankly into space. The drink in his hand has long since grown warm, but he pays it no mind. Suddenly, a brawny soldier approaches him. Ignoring his troubled state, he plops down beside him with a most inconsiderate thud. This man had always treated the boy harshly, more like an enemy than a fellow soldier in the ranks. "You here to pick another fight?" asks the boy. He can't even bother to lift his head for the query, feeling all the more gloomy from the man's presence. "Fight? No, boy. I'm damn proud of you." The boy is shocked to hear actual praise coming from the man. So shocked that he looks up in spite of himself. There's a slight hint of envy in the words, as if the man wishes he had the guts to disobey orders and sneak off to kill the enemy. Regardless, the boy finds the compliment embarrassing. Quickly lowering his head to hide the flush on his cheeks, he stands and makes his way to the exit. "Going for a piss there?" asks the brawny man. The boy gives a vague response and ducks outside. Night has fallen on the land. The silence is so perfect, especially when compared to the chaos of the barracks, that it causes his ears to ring. Camaraderie and banter did not come easily to him by nature, but that is not the reason for his discomfort this night. He has so many things to think about. And here, in the dark, his thoughts are free to run rampant. He stands there for a long time, until a sound finally causes him to turn around. An injured soldier is behind him, leaning on a crutch. He looks at the boy and cuts straight to the point. So, what were you doing in the enemy camp?
Uh-oh. I'm trying to kill the people who killed my parents, but then I found out that the guy was my dad. And the people who I thought were my parents were actually child traffickers. You know. Just a regular Tuesday in Yoko Taro's Fantasyland. It's fine. The Redacted Past, Part 2.
The night had deepened, the surroundings now fully dark. Faint light streams out from the windows of the barracks. The soldiers inside were still busy drinking and boasting. But here, away from all the sound and bluster, two fellow soldiers face each other in silence. The boy studies his unexpected visitor. He is young, with strong features and a shock of blonde hair. But his most noticeable characteristics are his blue eyes, which seem to shine with their own inner light. The boy usually pays no mind to the appearance of others, but even he remembered that distinguishing feature. He is one of the soldiers who received a promotion. Recalling that, the boy's puzzlement only grows. Gazing upon the soldier before him, he thinks back on the question he was asked. He asked me what I was doing in the base. We're not even particularly close, so why is he starting this conversation with me? And why did he wait until we were alone to approach me? I can't answer you unless I know why you're asking. The blue-eyed soldier stares back at him. Then, after a moment, he begins to tell his tale. We were part of the operation. My squad arrived at the camp after you killed the commander. The enemy was in total disarray, and we were able to dispatch the stragglers with relative ease. Once that was done, we searched their camp. And guess what I found? A confidential file marked with the crest of our army. Naturally, I was curious how this ended up in enemy hands, so I picked it up to take a closer look. But before I could open it, someone attacked me from behind and knocked me unconscious. When I woke up, the file was gone. But here's the thing. We neutralized the enemy soldiers, every last one of them. So who the hell attacked me? The boy starts. Are you saying I attacked you? The other soldier locks his blue eyes on the boy. That's my guess, yeah. I mean, you disobeyed orders, right? Infiltrated the camp and killed the commander all by your lonesome? Even you have to admit that's suspicious. So I'll ask you again. What were you doing in the enemy base? When the boy finally speaks again, he chooses his words carefully. He tells the blue-eyed soldier how his parents had been killed when he was young. How the killer was the enemy commander. How he became a soldier specifically to find that man and end his life. And how he didn't care if he would end up court-martialed, because his revenge would be worth any price. The blue-eyed soldier remains silent. It's as if he's trying to discern the truth in the boy's words. Silence settles between the two soldiers. In the quiet, the boy thinks about his comrade's story. He found one of our confidential files in the enemy base. But before he could read it, someone attacked him and stole it. Someone from our army. Is that file related to what the enemy commander told me? Does it relate to our country's past? And does it hold the answers I need? After a bit, the blue-eyed soldier nods and turns away, apparently satisfied that the boy is innocent. "Wait," cries the boy. The man stops. "What happened to the file?" "Well, if my suspicions are correct and it was taken by one of us, it should be in the vault here at the base." He then turns back to the boy and adds, "But don't go getting any stupid ideas. You already disobeyed orders once, and it won't go well if you do it again. So just keep your head down, okay?" He then departs, limping away on his crutch. But his warning falls on deaf ears, for the boy would do anything to know what is in that file.
What? Okay, but why? Griffin Lawrence's story had a happy ending. Why does it have to be a sad? Why are we doing this again? I don't want it. The Redacted Past, Part 3.
Why did he tell me that story in the first place? He clearly thinks we have a traitor in our midst. He made contact in hopes of finding out who it is, so maybe we can form a partnership and... The boy lets this thought marinate in his mind for a bit, before suddenly rejecting it. If the file does contain the secret of his birth, he doesn't want anyone else knowing about it. He begins to formulate a plan. The blue-eyed soldier is likely correct. If the file was stolen by a traitor, it would be located in the vault. Their base is a large, sprawling complex with many buildings. There are barracks, a training ground, a reference library, and the vault, which is only accessible to a select group of people. Now in the library, the boy finds himself staring at a set of blueprints for the base. Coated in dust and weathered away to a dim yellow color, they seem ready to fall apart in his hands. But he finds the part he wants, carefully tears it away, and quickly sidles out of the room. It is the route to the vault. The boy makes his way to the changing room, but not to don a disguise. Instead, he climbs on top of a locker and removes a dusty wire panel covering an exhaust duct. A duct that leads to the vault. He always cursed his small physique, but is now thrilled to have it. Drawing his shoulders tight, he manages to squeeze inside. Holding his flashlight between his cheek and his shoulder, he wriggles his way forward like an inchworm. Every movement brings a new puff of dust or a cobweb brushing against his face. He struggles desperately against the urge to cough. But just as he is about to lose hope, he arrives at his destination. According to the blueprints, the vault is directly below him. With a sigh of relief, he reaches out to the wire panel. But he can't get it free. Anger suddenly races through him, and he makes a rash decision. Applying all of his strength to it, he shoves the panel until it breaks apart with a crack loud enough to wake the dead. The boy scans the inside of the vault, certain that he has alerted a guard or triggered some kind of alarm. The only source of light is a dimly illuminated exit sign. When no one comes to investigate, the boy lets out a sigh of relief. Wiping a bit of sweat from his brow, he lowers himself down. The vault is filled with row after row of metal shelves. Each shelf has a number, with contents organized by date and type, such as confidential documents or artifacts claimed from the enemy. The boy roams through the rows, shining his light here and there. He checks dates on the confiscated items and opens any file that seems like it might be relevant to his interests. Finally, he stumbles across a folder with the word "confidential" stamped across it. It also contains the seal of their army, just like the one from the other soldier's tale. The boy takes a deep breath and opens it. The words inside immediately draw his eye. Infant abduction strategy. His heart begins to race. With a single trembling finger, he reaches out and slowly turns the page. It is a complete accounting of his country's actions. The plan was designed to create powerful soldiers. They researched genes from people across the world, looking for those with the traits they sought. Before long, they had a pool of possible recruits. Once an infant was found from a desired genetic line, they were kidnapped and raised as one of their own citizens. Everything the enemy commander had told him was true, and with each line he reads, the boy's long-held beliefs collapse. It is a pain unlike anything he has ever felt.
I can't believe Yoko Taro said, hey, I know this one had a happy ending, but that's because the bad ending is in the Dark Memory quest. It's fine.
Here, in the darkest part of his nation, the boy has uncovered the harshest of truths. The file, the vault, his history, the infant abduction strategy, the words of his hated enemy, the words on the page. It was all coming together. His head reels. His chest tightens. He feels like he is about to faint. But he does not. More precisely, he will not. Because he had to avoid the blade of the knife that is racing up behind him. Perhaps it is the boy's natural instincts that warn him. Perhaps the superior genes that were mentioned in the file. Regardless, he twists his head to the side and narrowly avoids having it separated from his shoulders. The weapon is a military-issue combat knife. His attacker is a man in a mask. A thin ribbon of blood oozes down his neck where the knife had brushed it. Though the boy does not understand what is happening, his training takes over and he readies himself for a fight. His attacker had hoped to kill the boy from behind, which meant his plan was already falling apart. Taking advantage of this brief lapse, the boy twists to the side and spins around to face his attacker. He grabs his arm by the elbow and wrist, locking it in place. Then he shoves the man into a nearby wall and tears off his mask to reveal a pair of beautiful blue eyes. The boy is stunned for the briefest of moments. But it is enough. The attacker twists his arm from the boy's grasp and backs away from him. Well, That was damn unlucky, says the man. Or maybe you're just better than I thought. Also, I thought I told you not to get any stupid ideas. It was true. The man had given him a warning. But the boy had ignored it, and now they were facing off once more. This time, there would be no talk, no parley. Instead, only one of them would leave the vault alive.
Griff.
The blue-eyed soldier snarls at the boy. It is a sound of anger, sadness, and indecision. Do you think I wanted to do this? You think I wanted to stab a fellow soldier in the back? The blue-eyed man then tells the boy a shocking truth. The chatter at the party about the blue-eyed guy being promoted was based on a lie. He had actually been transferred to the National Intelligence Corps. There, he was ordered to feign injury while eliminating anyone who might threaten state secrets. One of those targets was the boy, who had attracted attention when he ignored orders and entered the enemy camp alone. His superiors ordered him to test the boy by revealing confidential information in order to see where his true loyalties lay. God damn it, breathes the man when his tale is done. God damn it. His emotions take hold, and he lunges at the boy. But the younger soldier calmly dodges the blow and takes a couple of steps back, waiting for an opportunity to deploy the small knife he has hidden on his person. You came here expecting prey, thinks the boy. But in the end, I am the one hunting you. The man screams and lunges at the boy again, but the attack is sloppy and easily dodged. As his foe lumbers past, the boy pulls his knife from its sheath and draws it across the man's throat. The blue-eyed man falls to his knees, gasping. He presses his hands against his throat, but the blood simply courses through his fingers. As his heartbeat slows, he leans against a wall and slowly slumps to the floor. The light in his beautiful blue eyes dims. The boy gazes into them quietly. He does so for a very long time. When he finally comes back to reality, the man is no longer breathing. Sheets of paper from the file are scattered at his feet. He picks up one blood-soaked page and looks it over. It is a list of all the children who had been abducted. The plan had been in place for some time, long enough that many of his superiors and fellow soldiers were likely victims of it. They had been stolen from other countries, incorporated into a new nation, and given fake lives, just as he had been. Unable to collect his chaotic thoughts, he finds himself presented with a cruel truth. By killing a man who was supposed to be on his side, he finds himself with nothing left to trust. Not his country, not his fellow soldiers, and not even himself. Anger, sadness, unease, fear, hate. All these emotions swirl and churn in his heart. So then, what should I live for? The words that spill from his quivering lips are quickly swallowed up by the darkness.
This is fine. It's okay, guys. He learns to live for his Capitan. You know, once the cage is about to get blown up on the moon. Yeah, the captain still cares. Speaking of, the captain's story isn't all that happy either. His is a prequel. This is how he became captain, I believe. And that's not exactly a fun story, so... Alright, well, let's get to this this last story. A Bloody Medal, Part 1. When he enlisted in the military.
A perfectly ordered military procession marches forth, boots pounding in sync on the hard Scrabble ground. Troops kick up dirt in the training range as they run through an endless series of drills. If a person joins the military, they are essentially offering up their life to a country. For when the time comes, they will be thrown into battle without hesitation or mercy. Yet in this poor country, there is no end to the number of candidates eagerly waiting to enlist. This is because the monetary bonus for joining is substantial. Thousands upon thousands apply to join every year, each one drawn by the well-known catchphrase, "Join in a day, eat for a lifetime." But with so many applicants, the Army can afford to be picky, and most would-be recruits end up washing out. Those who are successful are assigned to one of several squads, where they serve under a captain, as well as senior squad mates who function as instructors. Squads eat together, sleep together, and train together. The idea is to teach discipline through group activities. This is a small base stationed at the border of the country. The new recruits stand in a row in the briefing room. At the front of the room, the captain calls the name of a recruit who achieved top scores in the military exam. In response, a young man steps forward and snaps off a dignified salute. The captain expresses his high hopes for the young recruit, who barks out aloud, "Sir, yes, sir," in reply. Everyone present can feel the ambition burning inside him. A few nights later, loud voices ring out in the dorm. The young man has started an argument with a fellow squad member. The two had been in competition with each other since the day they arrived, and often butted heads. Yet while the young man had a reputation for arrogance and was generally avoided by his fellow soldiers, he managed to form a sort of relationship with the other man, despite their rivalry. He was his friend, perhaps his only friend. As their argument heats up, the other soldiers gather around and egg them on, clearly enjoying the show. "You're always so goddamn selfish," cries the friend. He is angry, almost quaking with rage. Yet the young man is equally furious. "Yeah, well, I actually have things I want to achieve." The argument quickly turns violent, forcing the other soldiers to intervene. But they have trouble pulling the two apart. The fight ends as suddenly as it began when a door opens. The moment the squad catches sight of their captain, they grow silent and fall in at perfect attention. The captain just mutters and shakes his head at the pair before ordering them to clean the storage room as punishment. The senior who was responsible for instructing the pair is also ordered to pitch in, and his irritation is clear. When they reach the storage room, they find it in a state of extreme disarray. "Can't believe the damn captain is making me do this," grumbles the young man. "I mean, this is grunt work. What's even the point?" "Move your hands, not your mouth," responds the instructor. Accepting punishment is part of being a soldier. The silence of his fellow squad mates as they clean only spurs the young man's irritation further. "This is stupid. I have things I have to accomplish. I need to fight. I need to win a Medal of Honor." a Medal of Honor. It is the highest honor awarded by their country, given only to soldiers who accomplish greatness. Those who receive it are said to be destined for success. I'm going to be the best, continues the young man, and everyone else is going to know it. Though many members of the army enlist for the cash bonus, the young man joined only to fulfill the ambition in his heart. But this is the first time he's ever told his squad mates about his true goals. He has skill to spare in the military arts, so it's clearly not some flash-in-the-pan ideal. The relief he feels at finally expressing it is palpable. His speech made, the young man makes to leave the storage room. When his friend reminds him their work has only begun, he keeps walking and says, "My part's done. I'm going to sleep." Ambitious goals cannot be achieved alone. It takes the work of those who walk beside us. This is clearly a lesson the young man has yet to learn. The remaining two soldiers in the storage room smile wryly at each other, each of them silently mulling over this very thought.
A Bloody Medal, Part 2.
Several days later, the squad is called together for a strategy meeting. As they gather in the briefing room, tension fills the air. The silence is perfect. But after 10 long minutes, the briefing has yet to begin. It seems the captain has slept in. Again.
Again.
This realization spurs the young man's frustration anew. Finally, the captain arrives in a disheveled state. "Sorry about that," he says to muted laughter. "Guess I missed the alarm again." This said, he turns serious, as does the rest of the room. "Here's the latest. We've detected enemy forces marching en masse toward the border." Any remaining smiles in the room vanish at this news. The captain begins explaining their mission. "We are to stop the enemy's advance and protect our nation's territory. And as luck would have it, this base is directly in their path. Our only objective is to protect this base. We just need the enemy to withdraw while keeping our losses to a minimum." The briefing room fills with murmurs at this news. Reactions run the gamut from enthusiasm to relief to unease. But the young man leaps to his feet and asks permission to speak. Stifling a tired yawn, the captain tells him to continue. The sneer on the young man's face is clear to all. After some initial comments on the state of the enemy, he voices disagreement with the plan and suggests a total annihilation of their forces instead. A nervous buzz ripples through the room, but the young man ignores it and continues pressing his case. "These people have threatened our borders for far too long. If we take out one of their squadrons, we'll be heroes. People will have to..." "That's enough, soldier," says the captain softly. "Remember what I said? The most important part of this plan is defending the base and keeping casualties to a bare minimum. Because if any of the men here die, that falls on me." Rather than backing down, the young man redoubles his efforts and engages in verbal sparring with the captain for some time. In the end, however, he is overruled and the briefing ends.
Rip.
His plan rejected. The young man is infuriated. Why the hell doesn't he get it? I'm thinking of this squad far more than he is. Still convinced his plan is correct, he makes the rounds of his fellow soldiers, looking for any who might agree with him. With the arrogant attitude he has always displayed to his fellows, he does not find many who will side with him. Even the man he thinks of as his best friend turns him down. It's not that he doesn't desire glory. Everyone in the squad wants nothing more than to wear a Medal of Honor. But he joined the military to keep his head down, follow orders, and send money home to his family. So he can't risk everything on his friend's reckless plan. Were these reasons true? Perhaps. Or perhaps he is simply irritated the young man is crafting alternative plans on his own without even consulting anyone. The young man realizes his friend has balled his hand into a fist. With the thoughts and emotions of the pair still at odds, the day of the operation grows ever closer.
These could be light novels with how long they are, my goodness. And just have them all be just in a little light novel. And release it.
The battlefield is silent. It's almost impossible to believe a war ever raged here. All the young man can hear is his own ragged breath. He stands in the borders of the base. Scattered before him are countless numbers of corpses. There is no doubt who they are. 4 hours earlier, the enemy arrives at the base, and the battle begins. The squad digs in and defends the base from the enemy, just as the captain ordered. But the young man, impatient with this war of attrition, decides to commence with his own plan. Taking advantage of the terrain surrounding the base, he launches a surprise attack that takes out half the enemy in a single swoop. He is joined by a handful of soldiers who see things his way, and though many of them fall in battle, their bold tactics force the enemy to initiate a full retreat. As he watches his foes scatter, the young man grins. "I was right," he whispers. "I was right." Though his squad had not accomplished much in battle until now, they are sure to earn praise for this great victory. He is one step closer to his Medal of Honor. With those thoughts in his mind, he returns to the base. But the sight waiting for him there is a hellscape. His squad mates, all of them, lie dead or dying on the ground. Dumbfounded, he wanders among their bodies, the smell of burnt flesh and blood and gunpowder stinging his nostrils. It is the most horrific sight the young man has ever seen. He forces his breathing to slow and resists the urge to vomit. It's okay, he tells himself. It's okay. And though his legs feel heavy and false, he forces them to carry him forward. But then his foot catches on something, and he tumbles to the ground. At his feet is one of his squad members, heavily injured and covered in dirt and debris from an explosion. It is his instructor. Though he still breathes, it is with great difficulty, as he is bleeding from multiple wounds. "Hey, wake up." Realizing the young man is speaking to him, the instructor manages to open a single eye. It roves about blindly for a moment before finally settling on the figure of the young man. You attacked the enemy. Knew you would. The captain tried to save you. He changed our formation. And now look at us. With that, the instructor draws one last hitching breath before falling silent forever. The captain did this for me, winks the young man. But I always caused him so much trouble. Unable to accept his instructor's death, the young man wanders the battlefield in a haze, searching for his captain. Instead, he finds what remains of his only friend. An explosion has blasted off most of his left leg, leaving a pool of blood at the base of the stump. Good to see you're in one piece, says his friend. The fact he is still able to make jokes in such a condition is remarkable. The young man begins stammering out an apology. I'm sorry. I just wanted... I know, whispers his friend. I wanted one too. Said this was for my family. But that medal sure would have been nice. With that, he speaks no more. Tears begin to run from the young man's eyes as he sets off again in search of his captain. He sees bodies, 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 each one bearing a familiar face. Finally, he sees the captain and runs to his side. He calls out to him again and again, but the man makes no response. Sir, I didn't mean... He grasps the captain's ravaged hand. He wants the captain to reprimand him. He needs it. Otherwise, his apology would be meaningless. There's so much to say. He made a horrible mistake. He'd been wrong where the captain had been right. But he can scarcely force two words together. And the tears that pour down his face only make things harder. But then the young man realizes something. The captain is squeezing his hand in return. He's still breathing. He's alive. Ah, says the captain weakly. I'm glad you survived. The captain's eyes are closed. His senses all but gone. There is no way he can know whose hand he grasps. And yet somehow, he seems to recognize the young man and ends his life with a faint smile on his face. With that, the operation is over. The young man is the only survivor.
I mean, to be fair, his plan did cause, like, the enemy to retreat, like a full retreat. Like, the whole entire point is, like, the reason why he became a captain was because that was technically the right play for results, specifically. But it wasn't the right play to, you know, keep everyone from dying. So, yeah, it's just like, bud. He had to learn that results aren't everything. And he learned it the hard way. A Bloody Medal, Part 4. Oh.
Though it came at the cost of everything, the young man is finally a hero.
Oof.
For despite the sacrifices required, the enemy had withdrawn. The young man is given time off to recuperate, which is how he finds himself with nothing to do. Or perhaps it is more apt to say there is nothing he can do. Day after day, he hides in his house and attempts to drown his sorrows with strong drink. Empty bottles lie scattered across his floor. Rats run to and fro amidst the refuse and spoil. He wakes up, grabs a bottle, and drinks until he passes out. When he comes to, he begins the process all over again. If that was his entire life, it might be all right. But he sees flashbacks to the battle in his sleep, and these nightmares torture him. The battleground, the faces of enemies he killed, his squad mates dying before his eyes, his instructor, his best friend, the captain, all of them die in his arms. Day after day, 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 after day. The nightmares play on repeat, bringing his life to a halt. If only I hadn't made that suggestion. If only I hadn't ignored my orders. If only, if only, if only. His world becomes an endless spiral of regret. Was there even a point to what I did? Do I feel pride in what I did? Was there justice to what I did? Is this all because of my selfishness? Because of a goddamn medal? Maybe I should just end it all. He drunkenly loads bullets into his gun, raises the muzzle to his temple, and stands. He places his finger on the trigger, closes his eyes, and breathes in a lungful of stale air. Hold on, everyone. I'm coming. He moves to pull the trigger, but he is drunker than he imagines, and with his eyes closed, his balance flees and sends him crashing into a nearby table. When he opens his eyes, he sees a familiar envelope. It is the kind used for notices by the military's highest-ranking officials. Inside is an official letter congratulating him on annihilating the enemy and announcing that he will be rewarded with a Medal of Honor and promotion to captain. Ridiculous, mutters the young man. Goddamn ridiculous. I'm only alive because the rest of them saved me. Seeing the letter again reminds him that the ceremony is tomorrow. Finally, he takes a handful of sleeping pills and falls into bed. He dreams. It is the same dream as ever. A dream of that day. But this time, it does not begin after the battle. Instead, it begins before he set off to face the enemy on his own. No, I won't make the same mistake again. This time, he does not initiate his plan. Instead, he remains at the base and kills every last enemy soldier he sees, swearing he will make sure they never kill again. He slays as if in the grip of madness. Enemy soldiers fall, so many he cannot count their number. But it doesn't matter. He will do anything to save his brothers. Suddenly, he looks out and sees the faces of the people he has been slaughtering. They are all part of his squad. His instructor, his friend, his captain. He killed them with his own hands once more. With a short cry, the young man finally understands. I'll never be able to save them, no matter what I do. The sickening dream wakes him up. The morning sun streams in through the window. It is the day of the medal ceremony, the day of what he thought was his dearest wish. What meaning can there be in someone who wiped out his own squad accepting a medal? How can he face their memory? And when the ceremony is over, he will be a captain, a leader with troops of his own. What do I do, Captain? How do I atone for my sins? He asks himself this as he puts on his formal dress uniform. As he stares at himself in the mirror for the first time in a very long while, he sees how emaciated he has become. With heavy steps, he turns his back on the ghost in the glass and makes his way to the ceremonial venue, almost as though it is his redemption.
And of course, we know the story. We know the story of Captain Craven. So, I mean, I'd like to think that, you know, Griff's doing a good job of atoning for being, like, you know, getting a score of D for dipshit. It's just kind of sort of like, oh. It's like, I know we hear about what happened, but then hearing it in the Dark Memory quest just feels so much more depressing. But yeah, I think that we've gotten through a good chunk of them. I'm gonna try to get on, like, early, hopefully around 7, so we can knock out the rest of these. Maybe I'll find the other Dark Memory quests as well. I'm gonna grab Lavania's, and then depending on how I feel, I might grab someone else's. Whose? I don't know. And then whoever if I'm able to, like, grab someone else, we'll go ahead and we'll, do the thing. But let me see what I can do about maybe, finding the other ones, or the ones that I'm missing, since we're really close to everything dying soon anyway. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna get on out of here, you guys. Thank you for singing in. It's 4 a.m. I'm gonna go explode. And I will see you guys when I see you tomorrow for the beginning of the end of Nier.